Hello everyone and welcome to Black Ops Cold War. So of course guys, as you can see over here, we are on the Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War multiplayer alpha, which did end up going live just about an hour and a half ago at the time you're recording this video. And interestingly enough, this alpha did end up going live a little bit early. A lot of people were expecting for the alpha to go live yesterday at the time you're recording this one, which of course that didn't happen. However, it did go live just about an hour before it was supposed to, which is pretty cool in my opinion. And of course, ever since then, I've been playing the crap out of Cold War. And let me just say, this game is really good. It's a very solid Black Ops game and I have been really enjoying it. So with all that said, of course, what I am going to be doing in today's video is going over the absolute best controller settings. So yeah, without further ado, let's actually dive right into it. Now, interestingly enough, there are not many controller settings, at least in this build of Cold War. However, going into the beta as well as the full version of the game, of course, there are going to be different controller settings. So starting off right over here, when it comes to the input device, of course, I'm going to be using a controller. Interestingly enough, similar to Modern Warfare, you can actually plug in the keyboard and mouse and use that. So to all you PC players hopping back on PlayStation 4 to play the alpha, you can go ahead and use keyboard and mouse. Now, moving over to the controller settings, of course, my sensitivity, I'm going to be using a 7.7 sensitivity. Now, interestingly enough, the sensitivity goes all the way up to 14, being 14 is the highest and of course 1 is the lowest. And I like to use a 7 sensitivity, which is just about in the middle there when it comes to sensitivities. And that's just because it's not too high that it becomes hard to aim. However, it's not too slow that I have issues turning corners and all that. And overall, when it comes to sensitivity, it really just comes down to your own personal preference and what you find comfortable. So what I would recommend is start off with a base sensitivity, maybe like a 4 or 5, which is the standard sensitivity in this game, and then work up a little bit. Try 6 sensitivity, a 7 sensitivity, so on and so forth until you find the right sensitivity for you. And at least for myself, once again, that is a 7.7 sensitivity. Moving over to the button layout, I'm going to be using stick and move, and personally, I would recommend one of 2 button layouts, and that's either stick and move or tactical. Now, of course, you might be wondering, what exactly do these button layouts do? Now, talking about tactical for one, it's going to be swapping out the R3 button for the circle button. So that means instead of crouching with your circle button and meleeing with your R3 button, you are going to be crouching with your R3 button and meleeing with your circle button. This is going to allow you to aim down sight, shoot, as well as go into the prone position all at the same time, and you don't have to take your right thumb off of the analog stick, which is extremely important. Now, the other button layout that I would recommend that of course I'm using is stick and move, which is going to be doing a very similar thing, and as is going to be swapping out the X button for the R3 button. So that means instead of meleeing with your R3 button, you are going to be meleeing with your X button, and you are going to be jumping with your R3 button. And this of course is going to allow you to aim down sight, shoot, as well as jump at the same time, which is overall going to give you an advantage. So, and that's going to about wrap up for the controller settings. If you guys want to tinker with them, feel free to go ahead and do so, such as controller vibration, inverting your vertical look, as well as if you want to flip the L2 and R2 button for the L1 and R1. Now, before we leave the settings, there is one graphic setting that I want to showcase to you guys, and that is motion blur. You're going to want to keep this disabled. As you guys can see right over here, there are 3 particular motion blur settings, and the examples of them are on the right hand side. So of course, if you disable motion blur, there's going to be absolutely no motion blur. You can also have it self only, which is essentially weapon motion blur from Modern Warfare, and then you have enabled, which is weapon motion blur as well as world motion blur. And I'm going to be keeping this disabled, and that's just because it makes the game a lot more crisp, overall allowing you to spot enemies a lot easier, which will in turn allow you to perform better. Now, interestingly enough, in the alpha of Cold War, unfortunately, you have to manually disable motion blur after every single game, which is kind of a pain. However, let me just say, you'll want to disable motion blur, and it's definitely worth it to go into the settings and disable it after every single game. However, going into the beta as well as the full version of the game, I highly doubt that you will have to manually disable motion blur, but at least for the alpha, you have to. So yeah, guys, that's gonna about wrap up the best settings portion of today's video. Now, before I end off this one, I'm gonna be jumping into a game and showcasing a little bit of gameplay with these settings in action. So with all that said, I'll see you guys when I join up into my first game. And alright guys, as you can see, of course, we are going to be joining up into our first game, and this time we'll be joining up a little bit late into a standard match of TDM here on satellite. We are going to be using this beautiful XM4 assault rifle, which is essentially the commando from Black Ops 1. So if you guys ever use the commando, you'll know exactly how to use this weapon. Okay, there we go. That's going to be our first elimination, and we also got a long shot. Oh, okay, let's see if we can keep this going. Oh, back up. Alright, we're just gonna fall back. You got this, guys. You keep that stuff locked down. Now, of course, you have to keep in mind that this is an alpha. And come to think of it, I think this is the first ever open alpha. Okay, that's gonna be a double kill that we ever got to play. You know, most of the times the alphas for games are completely closed, and only certain pro players and content creators actually get to play the alpha. However, that's not the case this year. Of course, we are going to be playing the alpha right here in September, but then in October we have the beta, and then November, of course, the game will be releasing. I think that's one thing that people have to keep in mind, and as this is an alpha, it's not a beta, so that means for one, they're probably not going to be extending it. It's only going to be for those 2 days. And okay, that's going to be the game. And also, all the weapons have all of the attachments unlocked on it. So I'm considering if I am going to be making some class ups videos on the alpha. I might, but we're going to have to see. And with that said, make sure you guys stay tuned because I have a lot of good content that we'll be releasing throughout the alpha and then later on the beta. So yeah, guys, that's going to effectively wrap up my first ever Black Ops Cold War video. I hope you guys went on to enjoy it. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like on it down below. Also subscribe and turn on post notifications so that way you guys will not miss any new Black Ops Cold War content, as well as, of course, once we hop back on Modern Warfare when the alpha is done. I still have a lot of big plans when it comes to content. Of course, Modern Warfare Season 6 will be releasing relatively shortly, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. So yeah, guys, that's gonna about wrap up today's video. I've been your host, Deeper Jungle. I hope to see you in the next one.